Hey, y'all, welcome to episode 109 of the Late Night Vision Show. I am Hans. We've got a great topic tonight. We're going to be talking about what makes thermal scopes so expensive, or thermal optics. We'll include binoculars in that as well. And we're also going to be talking about will the price of thermal optics go down. But this is actually the first, what I'm going to mention is the first time that this has ever happened on this show. This is actually take two of the entire show for tonight because we just got done recording this episode 109, the whole thing. We recorded the whole thing. My lovely co-host, who I'm about to bring in, and I'm not going to call him any dirty names. This is not time to beat a dead horse, but got all the way back to his house and realized that he did not have his microphone turned on. So we're going to go through this whole show again. Take number two in the same night. So Jason Robertson, owner and thermal and night vision expert, owner of Outdoor Legacy Gear, Mr. Jason Robertson, not an audio expert.
Man,
and he's sick about it. He is sick. He feels terrible. I'm never going to let him forget this, but I'm not going to give him a hard time anymore tonight.
I really wish it was Hans that had done this. It would not. I would not be near as upset as I am at myself.
Yeah.
And it's actually even kind of worse. We've got a lot of different equipment with these microphones and all this stuff going on. And I had a part that was going out on me, and I replaced it and was in the middle of testing it and got sidetracked, did not get it tested. It was not all properly working. Yeah, got home, got to pulling the video off, and there's no audio in a 45-minute long podcast, and we had been up here preparing for 45 minutes before that. So now basically the late night vision show, we are recording take two, and I do feel terrible about it.
If this wasn't your show, you'd be fired right now. So I'm going to let you continue on. As executive producer of the show, I don't have authority to fire you, but gosh dang it, if anybody was ever as close to being fired than you are right now, it'd be a very bad thing. So
trust me, because if I didn't have a co-host right now, this show would not be happening this week at all.
Exactly.
And maybe never again, because I am so sick right now. I just willing to throw in the towel and just say, forget it. Somebody else can have a podcast.
There was a small part of you, I know, that you were about to say something about skipping this week because you couldn't record this again. But
I would, yes.
He soldiered on, folks. He soldiered on, and I'm glad you did because we got a great topic tonight. First of all, the questions always surround. A lot of people don't know and I don't blame them, but don't know what goes involved in the parts and the manufacturing of these thermal scopes. And a lot of questions as far as when are these thermal scopes and binoculars and all that, when the prices are ever going to come down. But to jump right into it, the man, and I wish that you had a scope in front of you that was completely dissected so you could show all of these parts that you're going to be talking about. But there's a lot that goes into this stuff. And, man.
Yeah, and I probably, if I'd have thought about it, I could have had a scope dissected. I do have a pulsar trail that is, it's a long story, but you can, the lens is busted out and you can see the germanium, and it's a paperweight, so I could take it apart. And honestly, I do have a put together Pulsar Helion XP38 monocular here, and if I had a strong temper, which I don't, so if you ever see me really angry, you better get away because I don't get angry. I mean, it's like a rarity for me. But I did feel like I could throw this thing down on the ground earlier. And so we could have actually had a dissected unit of mine here. But no, I did not. So, let's talk about this. It is one of the questions of people look at these things and they say, why are they so expensive? And we are used to, as consumers, seeing stuff be very, electronic-wise, be very cheap. And, we get a lot for the dollar. And, we've seen computers get cheaper and cheaper over the years, TVs, all these things. And that's something that I want to talk about a little bit of, what goes into one of these units and what makes it so expensive, and why can't we buy this thing for a few $100s like we can a laptop computer or something else. So let's dive right into some of these parts. I really do like this stuff. I like talking about it. It's something that we don't get to talk about on the phone with customers all the time because it's too much to get into. But we do have the question a lot of, gosh, why is it so expensive? And I will just go ahead right here. I'm just going to give y'all the secret, and we could probably just end the show here. But the reason they're so expensive is because thermal dealers like myself and a lot of others out there are just getting just stinking filthy rich selling these things because we're marking them up like 10 times what we pay for them. But I am
No.
only kidding. Only kidding. No, not at
No,
all.
everybody knows that's not true. Jason goes to the sale barn to buy cows, and he buys the skinniest, most broke down
It's
looking
true.
heifers that he can
It's
find on
no, they're
pennies
not
on the
heifers.
dollar.
They're not heifers. They don't have teeth anymore.
Yeah,
There's zero mouth. So yeah, there's no teeth,
yeah.
and yeah, no, you're not going to get rich selling thermal. So no, that's not really it. But let's start with the components and let's kind of talk about what goes into one of these that makes it expensive. And so, first of all, you've got a front lens, and the lens is always going to be expensive. I mean, good glass lenses are expensive, but behind that, what you've got is a focus, and that is something. Those two things combined can attest for a lot, or a lot of the money. A good lens and a good focus, and if you'll look, a lot of optics that don't have a focus on the thermal objective lens will be less expensive. Maybe like the Pulsar Core RXQ30V, the AGM ASP TM25 thermal monocular, the Pulsar Axion XM22. So a lot of these units that don't have focuses, again, it's just less moving parts. Every time you've got something that moves in there, it's going to cost more. And so you take those out, you save some money. So those are two very expensive things. But moving on back, what a lot of people don't realize is there is a lens in there that is a germanium lens. And germanium is a very expensive material. And these lenses, it's a funny, like a reflective, rainbowy glass color material.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting to see. But it's very expensive, and it's not always in high supply. I know that there's been some times some of the manufacturers over the years, we've had trouble getting some of their optics with just all of a sudden, like, the shipments dry up, and they'll say, well, it's going to be several weeks before you get another shipment. And you're like, what's going on? And you kind of dig around, and you finally find somebody that goes, well, we're having a problem getting whatever. And sometimes it's a different component. But several times over the years, the different manufacturers, I've heard, hey, we're having a trouble getting enough of the germanium lenses that we need and the quality that we need, the size that we need. So it's a very specific, expensive product. So that's one thing in there that, again, is not normal to, other electronics and optics and cameras. Now, moving on back in the unit is the thermal core itself. And that is a very expensive little piece of equipment. You've obviously got different qualities of thermal cores or different brands, but you've got the high resolution 640 by 480 thermal cores. Those are going to cost more than, say, a lower resolution, maybe in the standard resolution range of a 384 by 288 or 320 by 240 pixels. Then going on down, something like that AGM ASP TM160, that's a $500 unit everybody's talking about right now, is going to be coming out soon. That unit has got a 160 resolution core on the wide side. So again, the quality of that part is, depends on the price. And again, it's very expensive little piece of electronic. Moving on back, this is one thing that we don't put a lot of thought into, but it is the display screen. So when you look into one of these, there is a display screen, and this is something that Hans and I actually learned. This was a big surprise to me. we were at the Pulsar facility here in Texas in January before the SHOT Show. We were taking a tour, and I don't know how it came up, but something came up about one of the display screens, and I said I want to see one, and they brought one out and showed it to us. And if you look in the rear eyepiece, you would think that display that you're looking at is how big? What do you think, Hans?
I mean, you would think the size of a quarter at least.
At least, I mean, and it's square or rectangular. Yeah. So you look in there and you're like, that thing's got to be 3/4 to an inch across. I mean, it looks huge in there. They brought that thing out, and I don't know exactly which optic this display went in, but the actual size of that display screen is smaller than the fingernail on your pinky.
It's tiny.
And it's tiny. And like, if you're a big guy and have a big pinky, then it's way smaller than that. And it blew my mind how small it was. Yeah, it was not what I expected. So we're going to get into a little more of that in just a second of what, why it looks so big. But you've got some real expense there because there's a lot of different display screens. You've got an AMOLED, AMOLED. That's one of the higher end displays. You've got the standard OLED display. Then you've got FLCOS. That's a liquid crystal over silicone. Going on down, you've got the old LCD style. That's the liquid crystal display. And there's a lot of other variations in there, but those are the main ones. And the better the display, the better the image quality, the higher the resolution, the better quality that little electronic part is, the better the image is going to be. And so it's also something, and we'll kind of get into this later in some supply and demand talks, but those little micro displays are in low supply. And it's one of those things where we're used to thinking, you need more of something. You tell China or Japan or somewhere to stamp them out. And it doesn't always work that way. So these are in low supply. And I have seen this be a holdup for how many scopes can be made by a manufacturer as well. So now you're saying, well, why in the world is that thing so tiny when it looks so big? What's going on? It's another key component, and that is the eyepiece glass. So when you look into the rear of one of these optics, you're looking at essentially a magnifying glass. You're looking at a high quality, or hopefully a high quality, piece of glass back there that is magnifying the size of that micro display screen that you're looking at. And the quality of that glass is extremely important. And if you've looked through enough optics like Hans and I have, we have seen some stuff over the years that when you look through it, you're like, what in the world is wrong with this?
We're not going to name any names, but
we've seen a few of these that, we've picked these things up before and you're like, good gracious, am I looking through like a milk jug? What's the problem here? And it's a cheap eyepiece. Right. That's exactly what it is. There may be other cheap parts, but they have skimped there. I know we've looked through one in particular that I swear it was like some kind of plastic. It wasn't even glass. It looked like I was looking through plastic. And so that is another component that is that's again expensive and goes into the total cost of this. Now, so we've talked about the internal pieces. I want to talk about external, and I keep holding up this Pulsar Helion. This is just an example. I just had this in my hand when I was coming up here. I was using it a few minutes ago. So let's look at the exterior of this unit. This is a custom built housing. It is very intricate. It is a very nice design. This requires a mold to be made. And anybody that knows anything about this type of manufacturing knows that molds are very expensive to have made. Very expensive. And so anytime you talk about custom molds, you've got to make a lot of something for a long time to justify the expense of that mold. Right. Then you get into other moving parts. You've got a focus back here on this eyepiece, the diopter. Like on this as an example, just this one example, you've got moving parts with removable batteries. Okay, so you're taking battery packs off. You've got levers. You've got ways for this thing to plug right in. Again, more expense in the design. Also, most people don't think about this, but these units, most thermals nowadays, most of the newer stuff, is waterproof. It's submersible. 3 feet for 30 minutes is a pretty common rating. And I understand that, like a lot of the new iPhones and some of the new Android phones are that way as well. But that's an expensive technology. And when you think about something like this, with all these high end parts on the inside, moving levers, batteries that come off, eyepieces, lens caps, USB ports, all that stuff, and it's still got to be a waterproof.
Yeah.
So that's, again, another added expense. Something else that we've learned, I think, recently is the software or firmware. I don't know which that it is specifically, but whichever it is that is running the thermal core, that is producing the image that you see on your display. That is, which we've all known is a high-end software, but depending on how good it is, depends on how good the image is. So you could have a really all good components, all good parts, and bad software running that thermal core and not get near the image quality. And I think that with the new Pulsar firmware update 4.0 that came out in early 2020 this year, we've just seen what we thought was already good. They took 3-year-old optics all the way to brand new optics, let us download this firmware update that we installed, this patch, and boom, everybody's image quality got way better. Yeah. I mean, that was just something that I don't think any of us were, understood how important that software was. And I know Hans and I talked about that a lot, of like, this just got way better in a hurry.
All right, folks, this is what doing this type of podcast is. Remember what you were talking about, Jason, okay? Because this is going to be the first time that we may have to do this on the show. I've got a monster hog on camera at my house that I've been waiting to shoot for like 2 months. So we might have to pause the show for about 5 minutes so I can go kill this hog. Only if I promise him that I'll be back in 5 minutes to finish this episode. But
only if we can pause a show. If you have this hog better be legit, and if he doesn't get weighed, I'm going to be very upset.
I'm going to go kill him, and I'm going to put a picture of it on the second half of this podcast. How about that?
Okay, we will pause the show, folks. I'm going to hold this thought. Hans, go shoot that hog.
All right, y'all, I'm back. So I'm going to have to eat a little crow on that last part when I talked about going out and shooting hogs. So Jason, I had Jason on the phone the whole time I was doing this. I was like, you want to stay on the phone while I go out and shoot this hog? And I'm going to put up a picture, Jason, during the show to show what this hog looked like, how big it was. He's pretty big. And as soon as I opened that front door with my rifle and my shooting sticks, I see my dog, my lab, run straight for the bait hole. And he went out to that bait hole and laid down and spooked that hog off. I'm going to put up a couple pictures. I got a picture of the big hog, and I got a picture of me walking up with a rifle with the dog laying right on top of the bait hole where he spooked him. But didn't get him tonight. It just wasn't, man, this night has been a bust for all around.
This has not been a good night. Yeah.
The only reason you let me break the show to go shoot a hog is because you felt bad about the audio thing, and I appreciate that.
Hans could have said that he needed to drive 2.5 hours to go shoot a hog, and I couldn't say anything. But I'll be here when you get back.
Man,
because
I've been waiting for this hog.
It's after midnight, and it's my fault. So
I've been waiting for this hog. Hadn't seen him in a while, and he shows up tonight right in the middle of the show, thinking I was going to go out there and drop him real quick. But that's when you have dogs, man. Which is a good thing. They keep the hogs away. But when you're trying to shoot a big hog and the dog runs to go, go and runs the dog off. So it's tough, man. I'm disappointed, but hey, still got a show to do. So we're talking about the last thing you talked about was the software updates and the firmware updates on these units and making these things so
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, and we're just talking about kind of what those, what the cost is. There's just a lot going in to this software that's running this whole unit. And again, I know I'm talking about this stuff, and you're like, well, no kidding. There's software running everything. But I think the point I'm making is that they could just throw something together, or they could try to get something really good, and they're trying to get stuff really good. And then a lot of these updates, depending on your scope manufacturer and
Mm-hmm.
model, they can be updated down the road. So they're spending money writing this software and allowing you to update, your scope 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And not always, but in a lot of cases. And so there's real value there.
Well, I've got a quick
You know,
story on that. A buddy of mine who came up from Austin this week on a group hunt bought a Pulsar Trail XQ38, which if you hear that, he's had it for a while. He's only used it once, but he bought it well over a year ago. Came up into town. He has not used it since then, since he bought it. And I was like, man, there's a great firmware update for that thing. So I said, hey, look at this scope before we take it out and look at it. And then we did the firmware update, and man, it made that image so much better. And Silas, if you're listening, I know he listens to the show. I enjoyed having him up, but his scope was just improved by doing nothing more than a firmware update and something free that they pushed out. That software development, firmware update development that they're putting in and for free, basically.
yeah,
From
and it's not
consumers.
free to them.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, not at all. It's not at all free to them, but it's free to us. So again, just one more thing. I want to also talk about something that I think gets overlooked a lot. If you buy a new cell phone, if you buy a big screen TV, you buy a laptop, desktop, a camera, you name it, you get a warranty.
Right.
Normally, the standard in this country is 1 year warranty. That's what you're going to get on most stuff. You might get shorter if it's something really cheap, but normally a 1 year warranty. You buy a thermal, the standard for the industry is 3 years. Now stop and think about that for a second. You're taking an electronic device that, if we're talking about scopes, you're going to strap it to a rifle, maybe a 308, and you're going to mule kick that thing over and over and over. You're going to take it out and it's going to rain on it.
Yeah.
You're going to throw it in the back seat of your truck and it's going to stay back there and it's going to get dusty. It's going to get dirty. You're going to haul it on your side by side. You're going to be in and out using this thing in terrible conditions. I mean, hunting hogs and coyotes a lot of times is bad conditions, whether it's wet, whether it's snow, whether it's heat, whatever it is. And again, you can't minimize the fact of you're putting it on a rifle and it's just taking this just extreme recoil over and over and over. And not only does it hold up, they're going to warranty that for 3 years.
Yeah.
All the dragging around, the using, the banging around, that's crazy.
Well,
I mean, these
yeah.
things have to be built well
Yeah.
to take that.
I had a buddy who they shot a hog and they get out of the truck. My buddy lays his rifle somewhere off to the side, and the other buddy gets in the truck and runs over his Trigicon Reap IR scope. And he called Trigicon and they said, send it back, and they're fixing it. Now, I don't know what he told them as far as what happened to it, but he said other than the fact that it wouldn't really hold zero that well, nothing else was really damaged to it. But it's at Trigicon right now being repaired. So, I mean,
I'm telling you, these things are built extremely
They are.
well. I don't advise running over them.
No.
But again, you just have to think about what's going into this. This is not some, little iPad or something. I mean, there's a lot happening here. So warranty is a really, really big deal. The other thing, anybody that owns a business that deals with the general public knows that there's one thing that is very, very expensive, and it's one of the most expensive things you can do, and that's customer service. And most of these manufacturers, you know, Pulsar, Trigicon, Envision, AGM, whoever, they are doing their best to offer, you know, customer service, whether that's phone, email, uh, social media, whatever it is, they're doing their best to have somebody there to help you the best they can. They may not be able to answer every single question, but they can help you if you have a major problem, help you get it scheduled for repair, hopefully answer easy questions, order parts, whatever.
Right.
That is manpower. That is hours, and it is not cheap, and it's not easy. I can attest to that as a business owner. And I'm telling you, anybody that does any kind of business where they deal with consumers, they know customer service is expensive.
Right.
And they're providing that for you for at least the 3-year warranty period. But a lot of times, even also outside of that, you still may have questions that, you know, you want to know something about your scope or whatever. So that's a big, big thing. And if you buy most consumer electronics, what you're going to find is there's no customer service. Go buy a printer down at Best Buy, you know, and call the company, whoever manufactured that printer, or your laptop. I mean, I know there's some companies like Apple, their products cost more, and they're known to have, you know, pretty good customer service, be able to call somebody and get somebody. That's a rarity. I mean, most companies don't have that anymore. And so, but again, in this industry, it's very common and people expect it and they want it. And so that cost money. And, you know, but talking about this warranty too, being this 3 years, if you want a cheaper scope, and we can talk about this when we're talking about the prices, you know, take the warranty down to 1 year. I guarantee you that you could get the price down.
Yeah.
It costs a lot for that manufacturer to be able to say 3 years from today, we're going to take this guy's scope that, you know, he hasn't intentionally abused, but he is used and used hard and used well. And if there's a problem with some weird electronic part inside, we're going to give him a brand new scope if that's what it takes.
Yeah, and you know, the warranties, whether it be 3 or 5 years, depending on the company. I mean, imagine buying, you know, back in the day when the TVs were that expensive, you know, $3,000 or $5,000 back when the flat screens first came out. I don't think you were going to get a 3 or 5 year warranty unless you purchased some additional, you know, warranty on top of what you were getting it from the store that you were buying it. The fact that they're providing these warranties and long warranties, and you know, the companies that Outdoor Legacy Gear works with, a lot of the other dealers work with, are good companies. They take care of the customers. They honor the warranties, and you know, they're doing right by the customer, so that when the customer makes this big decision of spending however many, you know, thousands of dollars that it is for a thermal scope, they have the peace of mind that knowing that, hey, if I have something wrong with this scope, it's protected and taken care of. And, you know, that working, you know, buying a product from a reputable manufacturer along with working with a good reputable dealer has this, you know, this effect that you can purchase this stuff and be protected for a long period of time. But the warranties are very expensive. Like Jason said, running that down to a year, they could mark those prices down more significantly. But
Sure.
you know, that's to get those people to buy and spend it, you got to offer a longer warranty than 1 year.
Yeah. And so the last thing that I'm going to say on this kind of these expenses that you know, people sometimes don't think about what goes into here, and this is going to be the big one, and it's the number of units sold. You know, in manufacturing and sales, the more of a product that you can move, the cheaper that you can sell it. You know, if you can make and sell 1 million of something versus 1,000,
Right.
I guarantee you per unit that 1 million is going to be much cheaper than the 1,000.
Yeah.
And it's the same reason if you ever, you know, get something printed and, you know, like a business card, and you want a proof of one card, it's going to cost you a ton of money compared to the, you know, 4 cents a piece it costs you if you order 5,000 of them.
Yeah.
So it's the number of units. And while it seems like to the average person, man, these thermal scopes are everywhere. Everybody's buying these things. There's thousands of them being sold. The truth is that there's not really that many units like you think that there are.
Right.
For a certain model scope, just a random model, some of these optics may only sell, high hundreds
Yeah.
of that single model. It may never even sell 1,000 units, and even if it does move into the 1,000, it's going to stay super low into that. I mean, you would just be surprised how few of these. I know it seems like it's everywhere, but this is a really small industry, and I say this a lot. And I think people think that I'm just being dramatic when I say it or send this for emphasis. I say that the thermal and night vision market is a niche market. And so people hear that and they go, well, niche. Okay, just saying that. No, it's not. Hunting is a niche.
Yeah.
All right. Hunting is nowhere near as big as soccer, baseball, football, basketball. If you go into a sporting goods store and you look at the amount of square footage given to, all the ball sports versus hunting, there's a whole lot more people walking in there that are interested in buying a basketball or a basketball goal or than are ever going to go into the hunting or the fishing section or whatever. So hunting is a niche in and of itself.
Right.
But then inside of that, you've got hog and predator hunting. Well, that's a pretty small niche inside of hunting.
Oh, compared to deer hunting, duck hunting, all that.
Hunting,
oh, yeah.
It's bird hunting, all these other things. You've got a small niche of guys that are predator and hog hunting.
When people call from across the country to talk about scopes, they just talk about how hog hunting and thermal hunting has just exploded, and that's all they hear about, all the videos they see on YouTube. And there's this perception that, obviously it has gotten a lot more popular than it was, but it has not exploded to the point that everybody probably thinks it has. And there's a lot of thermal scopes that are being sold, but you'd probably be surprised that the number is not higher than you may think, because it is a very niche, like Jason says.
Yeah.
Hunting market.
And the last niche there that I didn't fit, the last one is the coyote and or predator, whatever you'll say, and hog hunting at night. Because there's a lot of guys that hunt hogs and coyotes during the day, but you're doing it at night. So that's the third niche. So again, just a smaller industry than it feels like it is.
You think about hogs. There's not hogs in every state in the country. Every state in the country. So it's limited game and opportunity, limited game opportunity. And there's laws and regulations on night hunting, thermal hunting.
Absolutely.
In other states. So not even all the states can even use this equipment that is being sold. So it's very, not near as large as you may think it is, but it's still growing though.
Yeah. And so again, just to wrap that up and put a bow on it, the more you make of something, the cheaper it gets. The more this industry grows, the more we'll see prices come down, which is kind of what we're going into.
Yeah, we're going into right now, and that's just like Jason said. We get a lot of calls, a lot of people that are, man, I wish the prices of these would come down. You look at all, there's other electronics out there that they compare it to, and the prices have come down a lot. Jason mentioned laptop computers, and you've got those people that are just wanting to know when the prices are going to come down, and you have people that are on the fence that are concerned about buying a thermal scope because they think that as soon as they buy a scope, something brand new is going to come out right after, and it's going to be even better than what they've already got, and possibly cheaper, which hasn't happened or doesn't happen. It hasn't happened yet, but they're concerned about buying an optic because something brand new is going to come out. But when it comes to will the price of these thermal scopes ever come down, we talked about components and how hard components are to get into these manufacturing hubs for production. And you've got the components, the limited availability of these units that are able to be manufactured and put out into the market. And, you just, with the demand that is going on right now and the production that's being put out, every scope, pretty much every scope that's being manufactured is being sold. There's not hardly ever any scopes sitting on the shelves. And as long as that demand is high and the production is steady or just right there above
Hmm.
demand, then the prices are gonna remain pretty steady. But I do think what we're seeing right now is when it comes to production is a race to the top in terms of quality. So the quality of the optics are getting better, which is great. It's not a race to the bottom for low prices. It's a race to the top. So the units are getting better, more features, better picture image, and all around better for the consumer in the long run.
Yeah, and Hans brings up a lot of good points there. A race to the top is a really good thing. We're
Hmm.
seeing more and more really good scopes, full of features, better image quality.
Right.
And I know if you're sitting there going, well, yeah, but I need it to be cheaper,
Hmm.
you may have to wait a while, but that eventually is going to come because what's happening is Trigicon is maxed out there about $9,000
Right.
with their Mark III 60 millimeter, and that's just been the top of the line for several years. It has not gone up. That's kind of where we see it. Envision is coming here, really give them a run for their money. $7,500 for the same quality of a scope. Maybe some would argue even a little bit better. Then you got Pulsar hanging in with their top of the line at 5,000. So what we're seeing is though, as these scopes get better and as new things are made, when the price even just stays the same,
Hmm.
it pushes down that technology from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, into a little lower price
Right.
point. So meaning the whole price may not have changed. The bottom may stay where it is, but that just keeps getting better.
Hmm.
So eventually when that price does come down, if it comes down, you're gonna have a really good optic for a good price. And so we would much rather see a race to the top than a race to the bottom. Because when you see that race to the bottom, and everybody's trying to make that 15, 18, $2,000 scope, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because what they got to do is they got to cut corners.
Yeah.
And they're going to cut more. And that doesn't mean that if you buy a $2,000 scope that it's a piece of junk. But if you start seeing everybody jumping on that and everybody's trying to undercut the other
Yeah.
by $100, I'm telling you, there's going to be a price to pay there, and it's going to
Well,
be in quality.
I
Go ahead.
I think that at some point this industry is going to plateau. It's been on the rise, a pretty significant
Hmm.
rise over the last few years. At some point, like any other business or industry, the business is going to plateau, and at that point, you may see it. You may see prices start to drop. Considering what we're going through right now, economic hard times, people don't have a lot of the expendable income to purchase luxury items like this is probably considered a luxury item. This at times, you see car dealerships right now doing all kinds of deals on cars, trying to move them, and
Sure.
anything to get those cars off the lot. At some point, the industry may get to that point where there's a lot of inventory sitting on shelves and they've got to move it.
Yeah, so when if the industry, even regardless of the economy, if the industry reaches a point of saturation with consumers, and most of the people who want to buy one already own one,
Right.
so now you're just getting guys buying new ones, and there's got to be somebody to buy their old ones. So you can saturate the market when that happens, or
Hmm.
you have an economic problem. And I'm sticking to the U.S. I know there's guys listening in other countries, but we're talking about the U.S. here. If you have an economic problem that's major and widespread and long lasting, and there's less guys maybe buying than would be, which we're not there yet by any means. But if we were to get there, and these things start piling up on every dealer's shelf,
Hmm.
and then they pile up on the distributor's shelf, and they pile up on the manufacturer's shelf, and they've got somebody working in the factory saying, "What do you want me to do today?" And they go, "Nothing," because we got scopes we're sitting on over here.
Yeah.
That's when they're going to figure out a way to get these scopes cheaper.
Fire sale.
They're gonna have to. They're gonna even if they fire some, even if they're losing money,
Hmm.
they're gonna get rid of those. They're gonna say, okay, what can we do to make these scopes cheaper?
Yeah.
We've got to entice people to buy. That's just capitalism. That's
But
capitalism 101, and that's what I think it's to some degree is going to take to get these scopes really cheap.
yeah, and trying to predict that or wait for that for the person that's sitting there thinking, you know what, I'm just going to wait to see what it does, to see if these prices come down. that's an option, but at you know, it's been a few years now and they've been steady. The prices have been steady, the quality has gone up. You know, you look at the trail models, the discontinued pulsar trails that moved over to the Thermion. You know, you've got a totally redesigned thermal rifle scope. You've got several upgrades, improvements, all, you know, a continuation of all the advancement in technology, and the prices are very comparable to what they were, you know, basically the same
They're
prices
identical. Yeah, they're
as
identical prices.
as the trail models. The price didn't go up, but the quality has gone up. So for the people that are sitting there waiting, thinking, you know, should I wait and see what happens and see if you know, maybe they run a sell on these things? The answer is it's not likely going to be anytime soon. I mean, it's going to take several. I'd say it's going to take several quarters of really bad economic times for anything to start to move in the downward direction.
I mean, I hope you're right, and I say that the reason I say that I hope you're right is because I don't want there to be a bunch of bad quarters.
Yeah,
Period. I mean,
exactly.
anybody, and I mean, none of us in this country should want to see that for any reason. But I do. I agree with you there, and I think there's a lot of guys that I've talked to. There's several guys. There's kind of a group of them that are in my mind. They're a group of guys that I've talked to for several years. Some of them 4 years now. Several of them 3 years
Mm,
that have still not bought a thermal scope, and they want to buy a thermal scope, but they've got a couple things that it's, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily that they don't have the money. It's that it's this, they're frozen, that
mm,
they don't know what to do, and there's this fear of there's always going to be something better come out, or they might get cheaper. And you know, some of these guys may be listening to this, and they're good guys, and I can't blame them. But I'm going to give you this cycle that we get into because I've been down this road with people. Okay, man, I wish they weren't so expensive. I bet next year at the SHOT Show in January, there's going to be some cheaper, better stuff. So I'm going to wait.
yeah.
Okay, no problem. January rolls around. Well, nothing really got cheaper, or maybe this scope's
Yeah.
$200 less, but gosh, it looks really good. I'm thinking I may want to get that scope. Okay, but I mean, let me know when they come in.
Mm,
All right. Well, May, June comes around. They come in. Oh man, you got them. What do you think of them? Well, we really like them. All right. Well, I want y'all to use them. Some other guys get them in their hands and see how they are before I spend this kind of money. No problem. By September, they call back. Well, what do you think, man? We really like them. Good scope. Everybody's been happy. September. Gosh, it's October. Man, it's only 3 or 4 months until SHOT Show in January. You think I ought to wait and see what happens? And,
yeah.
and it's a vicious
Yeah.
cycle. And then the problem is that nothing has changed for the most part. I mean, it just continues, and you go on and on. And I just think, I know I'm a salesman. I know this sounds, it's very self-serving, but I'm thinking, gosh, you've had 3 or 4 years. Your kid that was, 12 is now 16. Your 16-year-old is now out
Yeah.
of the house.
Yeah.
He's at college. You could have been hunting. You could have been, how many hogs, how many coyotes could you have killed with that same scope that you could have bought 4 years ago that'd
Right.
still be good, a good scope today? Now, again, I know it sounds self-serving, and but eventually you got to pull the trigger. And yes, there will be new models.
Right.
There will be something new next year. There will be something that's a better deal, but that's just life. It's the way it is, and you've got to eventually pull the trigger. Now, I do want to say one more thing, and this is my caveat. And again, as a salesman, it's self-serving to say these things and just go buy them, whatever. But I want to be very clear. I'm not encouraging anybody to buy a scope that's outside of their budget. Whether that means you may have the money sitting in the bank, but you're not comfortable spending it. Maybe your wife would make you live in the backseat of your truck. I don't know. Whatever it is, if it's not in your budget, whether you're not comfortable, you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Do not talk yourself into it. That's why the great thing about this industry, thankfully, is there's a lot of really good digital night vision optics that will let you get in and get into night hunting with some really good technology for much less expensive prices than thermal. So there's a little bit of something for everybody out there now, which it hasn't always been that way. And that's nice. So I don't want you to think that, that Jason and Hans are just telling you, go get out a new credit card and go buy thermal. Not at all. That is not our motto whatsoever. But we did want to give you some idea of what goes into these scopes, why they're so expensive, what it takes to produce them. And it's not just that thermal dealers or thermal manufacturers are getting rich. There's so much more to this. And we are a unique and somewhat odd industry because it's, again, being this niche that we are. And then again, just talking about what we think we're going to see in the future with pricing. And none of us have a crystal ball. Who knows? Maybe next year these things are all going to be half off, but I don't expect that by any means. I hope so, but I don't think we're going to see that.
Yeah. Well,
So
I appreciate everybody checking out the Late Night Vision Show. This has been one of our more unusual shows with the second take and the pause to go shoot a hog, which didn't happen. And I did not beat my dog for scaring off that hog. He did his job. He did a good job. So I can't be mad at him for that. But I did show pictures of it during this podcast, so you can at least see the hog. Stay tuned. Check me out on Instagram at HansETX to see if I do eventually get that big spotted hog. I sent Jason a picture while I was out there stalking him, and he was pretty big, man. I'm not gonna lie.
he was pretty big.
I hate guessing weight, but he was big. But
Yeah.
You can also check out the Late Night Vision Show. If you're not watching on YouTube, please go check it out there. Please subscribe and like the videos. Also, you can listen on the go on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. You can find all of our episodes at thelatenightVisionShow.com. If you want to find Jason on his YouTube channel, it's Outdoor Legacy Gear, and on Instagram and Facebook. But as always, if you're interested in purchasing anything night vision, thermal related, please give Jason a call at 877-350-1818. You can find everything that we talk about on the website. That's OutdoorLegacyGear.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, we thank y'all for coming back every week and tuning in. And, we give you all kinds of stuff here, from scope reviews to, digital night vision, thermal, interviews, hunting stories, whatever it is.
Real-time hunting stories.
Real-time hunting stories, all the way down.
Not every hunting story is this happy or successful ending.
Success. That's right. That's right. To all the way into some inside baseball here on the industry. But we hope you enjoyed it. And, we just appreciate you coming back every week. And if you're a new listener, like, subscribe, follow us, do whatever it is. We would love to have you back here again next week because, good Lord willing, that's where we plan to be. And between now and then, stay safe in the fields and keep making those bacon pancakes.